This episode is produced and made possible with the help of Raycast Media.
Si le gustaría escuchar un episodio en español, por favor escuche el siguiente episodio.
Good morning, everyone. Happy Monday. My name is David Fuentes, and I'm part of the team at La Incubadora Podcast. La Incubadora Podcast is part of the Economic Growth Business Incubator, a local nonprofit with the mission of providing training, coaching, and support to aspiring and existing business owners who face barriers to growing a successful business. La Incubadora Podcast is born out of the need to put in video and audio a lot of the success stories that we see here at the Business Incubator. We also want to answer frequently asked questions and connect small business owners with the resources they need to succeed on your own time and wherever you are, as long as you have access to a mobile device. This episode is produced with the support of Raycast Media, and so EGBI sends a big thank you to Raycast Media for their partnership with La Incubadora Podcast. And so with that, please join us in our episode as we delve into the world of business certifications, focusing specifically on the WBE HU Hub, Women-Owned Business Enterprise, and Historically Underutilized Business certifications. Our guest speakers for today, Laura from the Fowler Law Firm, will provide valuable insight into the significance of these certifications for women and minorities, and she'll offer guidance on the application process, the costs involved, and key considerations before and after certification. Please discover how these certifications unlock opportunities for small business owners and gain actionable advice to navigate the certification journey successfully. Before we begin, I want to give a little introduction about our guest for today. Laura Fowler is the managing partner of the Fowler Law Firm, which she founded in 2007 with 8 associated attorneys. The firm has received accolades such as the State Bar of Texas W. Frank Newton Pro Bono Legal Services Award and Martindale-Hubbell AV Preeminent Designation. In 2020, Laura established the Fowler Family Foundation, supporting scholarships and internship programs in Austin. She actively provides pro bono legal services and contributes to various local charities and associations. Laura, a Baylor University Law School graduate, began her career in the United States Navy Judge Advocate General Corps before focusing on defending the rights of businesses and individuals in Texas courts. Her primary goal is to develop strategies that prevent clients from entering courtrooms. And so with that introduction, I'd love to give a warm welcome over to Laura and Sherry from the Fowler Law Firm. And so thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, David. And we're going to rush through what's an incredibly important topic here. And then if anybody wants to email me or call me at no charge, because you're a supporter of the organization, we will be happy to answer your questions, copying them, of course, on David, so everyone can benefit. David, I think we have until 11:45.
Yeah, that is correct. That is correct.
Okay, great.
And if you feel that we can extend that, please feel free.
Well, now, David, you can tell David hadn't been sued very much, because if you want a trial lawyer to extend something, they'll be talking to sunset. You will have all gone away a long time ago. And first, note, if you want to succeed, Sherry is our law office administrator. Without her, I am nothing. And David, if it hadn't been for Sherry this morning, I never would have gotten the link figured out, because these links are very different. But it's a beautiful image. David, you look so attractive this morning.
Thank you. Thank you.
Nice installation there, buddy. All right. Thank you. I want to tell you a story, because what I really am most of the time is a business litigator. That means I go to trial. I don't get to have a happy talk with somebody like all of you and David. I'm running around down at the Travis or Williamson or Bastrop County courthouses or Hayes with an ice pick trying to get somebody on the other side of the courtroom to behave or persuade the judge to give me what I want. And that's where you don't want to go. But I do want to tell you one story that is an absolutely true story. I have had a lot of our work is with first generation Americans. As most of you know, if you're watching this from Austin, Austin is a very international city. We have a high percentage of people who who form businesses here because they think it is, by comparison to a lot of other places, a lot better place for growth, and it's pretty stable growth. So this is a great place to do business. And I am in the city of Austin. I have a certification as a historically underutilized business, and I have helped many other people to do the same. I gave a talk last week at the Pflugerville Library, hosted by the SBA SCORE. And I asked everybody when we talked about these HUB, historically underutilized business, and minority women business entities, how many of them fit in one of those classes. Of the 25 people in the room, only 3 didn't fit in the class. I don't know why everybody doesn't do this. You can fill it out in a portal. It's very inexpensive. But you got to know what you're doing, because if you just rush headlong into it and you don't know who you are and who owns you and who manages you, so we're going to pay 6 questions here. And all of you, if you're smart enough to listen to David's presentation today, you're smart enough to answer these questions. You don't need a lawyer for it. But I beg you, so I'll start with my story. If you don't remember anything else, you remember this story. Unlike all of you who, I assume you're in this talk because you speak English, because I know we're going to have another one after this that's Spanish speaking. And 3 women all came to me, sent to me by the city of Austin. They were hardworking women. They barely spoke English. They didn't have the skills to fill out the form, but they were just great women. And they were women that were working 10, 12, 14 hours a day. Their mothers were taking care of little kids to just earn the money to put food on the table. And to make a very long story short, I said, you need to hear the words of God in the form of the city of Austin. We need to get you an MWBE. And they told me, what's that? They asked me, what's that? I said, just don't worry. Just tell me the truth. Give me the answer to these questions. And I helped each one of them. And in a matter of a few weeks, they all had their certifications. You have to be in the city of Austin. You can also, many other cities get it. It's just that's the one I'm most familiar with. And the people are real nice. Austin is not a city of giant companies. We have a few. We have the Apples and I think Tesla's inside the city of Austin. I forget. We have these multinational businesses, but mostly we're a city of small businesses. The city of Austin is very kind, in my professional experience, to many of these people who come and don't have the first idea, but they're good people, they're hardworking. Be honest about your form, and you will reap rich rewards. So each of these women, and they were all Spanish speaking, but these principles are true for any kind of person who meets these criteria. They all filled out the form. I don't think they had any idea what was in the form, but I speak Spanish just well enough to embarrass David. David, the first $1 I ever earned was giving English and Spanish speaking tours through Walt Disney World. It was very proprietary. And I have a tortured accent. But anyway, all these women told me the truth in Spanish. We filled out their forms, and they went away. Once they got the certification in a couple of weeks from the city of Austin, they went away. One of them was involved in construction. One of them was involved in construction cleanup. These were all things that you didn't have to have a license for in Texas. And the third was a landscaper. And I'm not talking highfalutin landscaping. I'm talking go out there, mow the lawn, cut the dead limbs off of trees, things you didn't have to have an arborist certificate for. And they were very nice. One of them sent me Christmas tamales. If you make Christmas tamales, I will represent you for free. I'm still remembering how I heard the angels sing when I ate these things. Okay, but the lawyer's like the emergency room surgeon. You're grateful and you move on. And about 3 years later, all 3 of these women, they had nothing to do with one another. They were all completely separate small businesses, all in a panic, called me up. And they still had learned to speak English very well, but they were hardworking women. And they kept using this term, D-bar, D-bar, D-bar. And I thought, oh my goodness, we've committed a felony here or something. But that wasn't it at all. I, in telling the deity my choice to tell you that deity is my witness, these women had made so much money and they had not been shrewd about how they moved the assets around, that they were under the standard then, which was a little bit less than $1 million. They had more than $1 million in wealth. And that's because of those contracts, because they were hardworking, they were frugal. And that's what's going to happen to you if you can punch in to a service through the state of Texas or the city of Austin or their general contractors. So, and EGBI is the best about getting that. You don't need an expensive need. I'm expensive. Someday you'll be so successful, David will say, you need Laura Fowler. And EGBI helps you with these things. If they want, I'll teach a course on it. You just got to fill out the form. You got to be honest about it because you're required to swear to it. All right, next slide.
Thank you so much, Laura. That was a beautiful introduction. And let me just say, Laura has been a great partner with EGBI in the past, and she can be a great resource for you. We're also a resource. So thanks again for the time today and for giving this information out to folks.
Well, thank you, David. Yeah. Now, here are the questions. And see, there's nothing wrong, scary about these questions. But what you don't want to do is haul off and form a limited liability company or a corporation and then start thinking about all of this. You need to, first of all, some people come to me and they say, Laura, I want you to form me a business. And I say, why? Because you don't have to have a business entity to get these certifications. You just have to have an EIN, which you, David, and I, and a trained German Shepherd can get. It's free. An EIN is free, and you can get it in about I filed one. I got somebody an EIN last week at the IRS. It came back in less than 2 minutes. Now, filing your thing with the Secretary of State, that's going to take you about 2 days. It's going to cost you $300. But don't file for an entity. Just be you until you know what you're doing, because you can blow it. If you're let's say you're a female and Hispanic. And what city and state is your business in? If you say, oh, I live in Round Rock, you just blew it for getting this certification from the city of Austin, which is because you got to reside, if you're a human being, or form your business in the city of Austin. Now, you can live in Round Rock and form your business. If you honestly have a business in the city of Austin, you're physically located there, you rent a little space or something, but don't fill out these forms until you got this straight. Who owns your business? If you've got to both own it, whoever is the eligible member. In the case of the woman who's Hispanic, if her husband is Hispanic or her son is obviously Hispanic, then they'd all be eligible. But the husband and the son aren't female. So you got to figure out which of the eligible classes, women, Hispanic, Asian, Black, which of the eligible classes plugs into the city of Austin. And we're going to talk about historically underutilized business, state qualification. Then this is very important. Some people have no idea because they weren't making enough money to even have to file a tax return. But what is your annual business revenue? What is your personal net wealth? And that's where you need to go get a CPA to work with you. And they won't charge you much for that, but you need to tell the truth. And all this, nobody digs a big hole in the backyard. Very few of my businesses are cash-based unless they're selling whiskey. And if you're selling whiskey, you filled out a lot of forms to get to the point in Texas that you have the right to sell that whiskey, so you don't have a problem. And then another thing, when they come to me and they ask me to form these things, I say, okay, hold on to your you-know-whats, because if you've got some capacity, when the city of Austin says, hey, we got $1 million, go cut My friend, who was the arborist, she just got really lucky, although she said to me later, yeah, I made progress on my spiritual path because the city called her up with about a $400,000 just drive up and down, Mopac in a truck, and cut all the shrubs and trees that are impairing the passage of traffic. You know how far Mopac is up and down? And it was 400,000. And they said, can you handle it? She said, you better believe I can handle it. And then everyone she knew who could walk or crawl got signed on. And we really had to move that thing around to get that first contract. But then she was in, and she's the one that called me up about to lose. Because if you get above a certain level of wealth, happy news, now you can have a level of wealth up to 2.2 million before you're debarred because you're too rich. And if you're debarred, you can still go to the state and we can get you a historically underutilized business status. There's no wealth cap, but you can't get City of Austin contracts. I mean, you could get them, but you're going to be bidding with the big boys and girls then, and it's a lot harder to get those contracts. Okay, next slide. Here's how many of you, I bet you 80% of the people listening to this, David, do you fit into one or more of these preferred classes?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. And
I fit it. And Sherry has a business. You need to go to Sherry's website and buy her stuff. It's great stuff. And I'm a business. I'm the Fowler Law Firm. So everybody that's shown here, all these happy heads on David's screen, we all qualify for this. Most people do. There's some more, like a disabled veteran. A lot of Anglo men meet that definition in this area. We've got a big veteran population. Okay, so let's go to the next slide, David. Okay, and these tell you some more things, and that shows you that. And David, are they all going to have access to this? That gives you the link so you can see what the wealth criteria are. But I just love the small business construction program. You can make $16.5 million a year if you're laying sewer or water lines and still not be disqualified. So this idea of small, it looks pretty big to me. So next slide, David. Okay. And Dave, I just want to say the pixelation on this thing is beautiful. This is really great. Okay, now, if you just made so much money, your net wealth is now at 2.2 million, and you're making 20 million or whatever the SBA definition caps out at, it's different. Chicken is different than wastewater, okay? A lot of different categories may disqualify you, but you're talking big money, 16 to 20 million, that's big money. Here with a historically underutilized business, you got to go to the state. It's all an online portal. I think it costs $300 to apply over there, but there is no wealth cap, and you can be anywhere in the state. So if you don't want to work in many of these cities, Round Rock, Pflugerville, they all have their own deal. They just aren't giving out as many contracts as the City of Austin, because City of Austin is not just their deal, but also as a pass-through from a lot of other cities. And you can piggyback, but with the hub, you can do things like University of Texas, all the state agencies, the Highway Department, which is one of the largest departments in the United States, State Highway Department. Okay, keep going. I know we're out of time, but I get
no worries.
Oh, okay. Not out of time. Okay, back we go. Let's go back again then.
All right.
Okay, and here's the thing I want to tell you about this. This is the dirty little secret a lot of people don't know. And this applies with equal force to the Austin or similar city. And you just call up the city and say, hey, do you have an underutilized business program? And they'll say, oh, yeah, we do. Or no, we don't. Because it's not mandatory, but most cities do. And the state of Texas, and if they don't, then you probably want to go to the historically utilized business for the state of Texas. Here's what a lot of people don't understand. And this is how most of the time these people that could barely feed their kids went from that to being very prosperous in a matter of 3 or 4 years. And it is simply this. For every time, that poor woman who cut shrubbery and limbs off trees up and down Mopac, she was unusual because she got, working directly for the city of Austin, a $400,000 contract coming out of the starting block. And by the grace of God, she had so many family members, she put them all to work because everybody kept cutting down jobs, right? They were a great family. But you can also, if you're qualified, if you're Google or Apple, not just federal defense contractors, but all these IBM, Xerox, Oracle, Tesla, if they get any money from the United States government or the state of Texas, there are mandates that they set aside. Typically, it's about 10% of all their federal contracts. Dell is gigantic. Dell and Google are gigantic subcontractors to the federal government, not just for armaments, but for data. And we're a very data-driven city. So out of all the federal, not everything they spend, but every contract they get from the federal government or state governments, they must set aside a certain percentage to give to subcontractors. So even if, unlike my friend, the tree trimmer, you can't handle a $400,000 contract coming out of the starting blocks, those bigger contractors who are not preferred by virtue of a historically underutilized business status, they're just big contractors like Google or Dell. They are desperate to get people to do 50,000 here or 25,000 there. And that's what so many people miss about this. They're turned off by the idea they don't feel comfortable getting their money directly from the city or the state because these contracts are too big. Smart move. You need to be realistic about what you can handle because you're only going to get it once. And then if you screw up and don't perform, you go to the bottom of a very long list and you have to start over. And I think once you blow up a contract, those people in these diversity contractor award committees, they got memories like elephants. They know you screwed up. Mm-hmm. That's hard to get over. I can get you certification. I'm not very good at fixing your blow up. So be realistic. Don't get greedy. And remember, and I submit for every Dell and Oracle and IBM and Google, there are 100 smaller, historically underutilized business contractors who are fit into these definitions for minorities or women, or, and it's not up here because it's an entirely separate section. That's not what y'all asked me to talk about, but disabled veteran and who own a business. And remember that business you own may be nothing more than you, sole proprietor with an EIN, which would take you about 30. If you got a social security number, EIN will take you less than 2 minutes to get, and you have everything you need. So, David, that's really, we got through this, didn't we? Yeah. There's a lot more I could say. Oh, no, I have some wonderful stories. You talk about rejoicing. The second part of this, my friend, the arborist, when she was getting debarred, and the good thing is we went from her wealth at $1.2 million, which has disqualified her, to now it's at 2.2 in the city of Austin. You can move assets around. There are a lot of perfectly lawful ways. We tell the city we're doing it, and we move assets into holding companies or we move assets into the business. Don't do this yourself. Then you really need somebody like me to do this because you have to be careful about what you're doing or be treated as a defrauding the governmental unit. You don't want that. But I'll tell you, there is nothing for most of us that fit into these. And I said us because the last time I checked, I am still of the female persuasion. You know, everybody thinks trial lawyers are just grizzly old wolves, but maybe I'm that too. But Remember, always think about you're never too small to take on a little more. And even if you're not ready, start going. All these HUB and Austin, and we got the links to both. They have lots and lots of training. And I want to say something about the city of Austin before I conclude. They've got both the MWBE certification, which is what we're talking about today, and they've got the MWBE Resource Center. And it's really, really good. And I always tell people this certification is like giving you a key and you walk through the door. But on the other side, it's like business anywhere. If you make some friends and gain some knowledge, you get to step to the head of the line, whether it's City of Austin, University of Texas, State of Texas Comptroller, Highway Department, whatever. And they'll get to know you. And if you're friendly, and above all else, tell the truth or say nothing. But never, ever, ever misrepresent an important fact. You know, telling some of those, all of them are drop dead gorgeous. Wow, you're really looking beautiful today. That would be a lie in the tolerable range if they just look awful. Like everybody does during South by Southwest, right, David? I'm so tired of fall through a hole. Yeah, but seriously, never, ever, ever don't tell the truth on that form. Because you are swearing under oath. You may not realize it, but when you push the submit button, it carries the consequences of swearing under oath before a notary. So tell the truth, fill out the form. After you understand what you're doing, go get an EIN, which will take you 2 minutes. And I wish every one of you get so rich that you got to come see me to move your assets around.
There you go, and that's the goal, right? Is to take advantage of these resources that the city has for us, that the federal government has set aside, and really get to a point, you know, where one, be responsible with it, make sure you have the capacity to accept these projects. If that's one thing that I've gained from the information that you shared today. So thank you so much for the information, Laura, and also thank you for you, Sherry, for preparing it.
She's the one.
Yeah. And so can you share one key takeaway from this episode for today? One thing that you want our audience to take away.
Yes, if we look back at the third slide, should you apply for HUB and that criteria? There you go. No, go back one more, please. Should you apply? This you need to do. Now, if you're a sole proprietor, you either fit into one of those categories or you don't. No big deal. But I have so many people bring me, they spent the money, maybe even paid a lawyer or LegalZoom to create an LLC, and we can't use that LLC, and they don't understand why. And it's because they screwed up the location. They weren't within the category where they're supposed to be. They screwed up ownership because they want to be nice, and they gave it to some non-qualified people. Oh, can I say one other thing, David, that's also
please
very important? Even though you will certainly, once you get certified because you're Hispanic or you're a woman or you're Asian or you're Black, it isn't as if everything, I'll just pick on one category. There are many, many people who are certified because they're Asian in high tech. So if you are Asian and you are in high tech, you're not necessarily going to get the highest priority. But if you are Asian and you are chopping limbs off trees and cutting the grass, there are very few Asians in that category. So characterizing, and why I say that, is purpose. What is the purpose of your business? What are you doing? What are you selling? Goods and services. So always be thinking about, if there are lots and lots of males doing construction, is it that I'm a female doing? Every one of my women, and when I got their certification to do construction, land surveying, certain things that had to do with the evaluation of that were construction-related discipline. Because they were women, they got it. And I was told each time, it's great they were Hispanic or Asian or Black or whatever, but it was that they were women that got it, because such a tiny sliver of women are in hands-on construction trades. That's not, I'm not sounding sexist when I say that. It's just a fact. It's interesting to see as big an international first-generation American populations we have here, how certain particular industries have much higher percentages, and you get certified, but you need to look at your purpose. So that was a long one. Never ask a lawyer a question, David, because they'll never give you a simple answer. But look at, can you answer these questions and answer every one of them before you get a business entity? Then when we write your operating agreement, you will say, this business is domiciled in Austin, Texas. If you're trying to get Austin, Texas, MWBE. This business sells tree trimming. This business, and you can also manipulate owners, because ownership and management are completely separate in Texas. And the owner and the manager have both got to fit into that protected class. You got a manager, it may not be an owner, maybe an owner, some owners are also manager, but don't blow your status, because if you love your husband and you say, honey, I want you to be the boss, so he's now been given day-to-day authority to be the member manager, you've blown it. To get it was because you were a woman. And I would say, David, if you want to know what causes me to have to redo, and I hate it because they spent all that money on one lawyer to do a good job to form the thing. It was a perfectly legal corporation or LLC, an operating agreement, but it didn't do what they needed to do to get this stuff, because they just didn't think about it, and I had to undo it, redo it. And they say, oh, come on, can't you change it? Well, yeah, I can change it. But then you get audited because they don't believe you. So really starting a completely separate entity from scratch with a new operating agreement that makes clear that who owns it fits in a protected class, who manages it fits into that protected or preferred class, what goods or services that protected or preferred member is, those are really the city or the state is seeking people in that preferred class to do tree trimming or land surveying or high tech. So it's interesting to me, we have a very high percentage of Hispanics in the state of Texas, and yet in computer services, not so much. So if that's your line of work, you would go to the head of a very long line. And sometime David will invite me back and I'll tell you amazing stories about people who were preferred, but did something that their particular race or ethnicity was not very frequently represented in. So that's, yeah. So think about this a little. Don't just haul off and do it. And like I said, I'm always here. You can send me an email. David will give you my email. If you ask me for all this highfalutin advice, I normally charge people about $500 an hour for. Hope that makes you breathe hard. Yeah, because you're with EGBI for free. What a deal! You know? But you have to go through David and copy him, because if you're going to ask me something, normally everything you ask me is confidential and privileged. But if you ask me something and you get it for free because the EGBI, I want to send it back so David can decide if other members might benefit from it too. But we'll never share your name, anything like that. Okay.
No, thank you. Thank you for that. And that is something I have also never, right, is diversifying. If you're fit within a specific, right, if you're within a specific race in an industry where you're not represented, right, you might want to characterize yourself that way. And so thank you.
Race or gender, David. Race or gender. Because
Okay.
there are a lot of things that traditionally women have just not, and I'd say it's funny because a lot of my work is construction, representing skilled and unskilled trades and general contractors. And it is, I think I'm back on the top deck of my aircraft carrier that when I entered the Navy in 1980 was all boys, okay?
Yeah.
And one female. And it's like that when I go give talks to hands-on construction workers. It's still predominant. There's some women, some very talented women, but it's still predominantly men. Yeah, so that's an important thing to think about. And remember, just because you're doing one thing, you can start to do other things. You just form a different entity and dedicate that entity to tree trimming or construction trades or whatever. It's no big deal to have a couple of entities. And I love having entities because you shift and minimize risk.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. That is a good amount of information. Before we leave today, can I get them your contact information, any email, and we can post it up for our listeners that are listening only and don't have the visuals? What's a good way to reach your office?
Yeah, if you the last slide has the phone number and the website.
Okay, perfect.
Very last slide, yeah.
All right. So for those who are listening in, the phone number for their office for the Fowler Law Firm is 512-441-1411. Again, that's 512-441-1411, and they serve the Austin and Georgetown area. Their website is www.thefowlerlawfirm.com/, and you can access them that way. Or you can also email me at david@egbi.org, and I'll be happy to forward you that contact information. And so thank you very much to both Sherry and to Laura for joining us today from the Fowler Law Firm and for dedicating this time to get this information out to the community. I think this is a good wrapping point for today. It has been such a pleasure chatting with you today, Laura, and we hope that our viewers find this episode useful. If you know someone that could benefit from listening to this episode, please share the link with them. And remember that La Incubadora podcast is part of the Economic Growth Business Incubator, a business incubator in Central Texas that offers training, coaching, and support to small business owners with barriers to achieving success. And so if you would like to learn more about the EGBI, please visit egbi.org, and we'll see you soon. Thank you so much, y'all.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Sherry.